What is the Eurodollar system? In this video, we'll be covering that in much more detail, how to understand how domestic US dollars are different from international US dollars, what the Eurodollar really means, and why there's a lot of misconceptions. So, just right off the bat, if you think that a Eurodollar is just a US dollar, fiat currency, in the European banking system where they typically use euros, especially in more like Northern Europe. In Eastern Europe, there's some different currencies circulating, but if that's what you think, you're wrong. It's not. It's actually all dollars that are not domestic. So all, you could say offshore, you could say international, you could say global dollars. And the reason this is important is so many people get this mixed up just because we have this name, Eurodollar. There's also the petrodollar system, which we will be making a video on to kind of explain the petrodollars. But just right now, for the sake of learning, understand that the Eurodollar, kind of eliminate the idea that this is just a US dollar in Europe. It's not. It can be a US dollar in the Middle East, it can be a US dollar in Asia, wherever. It can be a US dollar in Antarctica, okay? So basically, these US dollars, we'll go into this in more detail, but just so you understand right off the bat, they're more volatile, but they also hold a higher interest rate. So this kind of played out because of World War II. You know, the reason you might be like, okay, why is this so confusing? Why are we calling this the Eurodollar? Well, what happened is in World War II, the US dollars were actually being used to help the European economy, okay? So the US had to come and basically help out Europe's situation after World War II and in all of the aftermath. So we were investing, we were kind of stimulating economic growth in Europe. So a lot of these US dollars were being put out into Europe, and then some of these dollars were being flown back into the US because, you know, we were getting paid interest on our investments in Europe. And this is creates for an interesting situation because it created kind of this two-tiered system where you have the domestic US dollars, which are insured by, you know, the Federal Reserve, they're regulated, and they're FDIC insured. So at each bank, you know, you're insured up to like $250,000 of FDIC insurance. That's why, you know, if you have a large net worth, like over 10 million especially, you should be spreading this out in different banks. Let's just say you have $1 million, you want to spread this out in at least 4 different banks that aren't all owned by the same shell company, by the way. This is very important. So you're FDIC insured at each one of these, because if you're just having 1 million, if you have all your eggs in one basket, and there's an issue with the banks, there's like a run on the banks, or we have another kind of bad recession situation, you're only insured 1/4 of that. So it's kind of a little aside, but we talk about all kind of types of global investment strategies here at Invest Global. Typically, we've been more talking about kind of different economic lessons recently. So I think the Eurodollar system is very important to understand, because when you're talking about getting interest rate on just a US dollar, so let's say you just want to earn interest in a bank account, especially if it's a fractional reserve banking system, the situation is horrible, especially when you compare it with what's out there in the blockchain cryptocurrency space. It's been getting a lot of attention recently. I mean, with BlockFi, you can literally get 8.6% APY like that, easy. You don't have to sign out all the paperwork that you do at a bank. It's so simple. Like you can sign up in less than 5-10 minutes. And then with Celsius, something that maybe some people view as a little bit more risky, a little bit more in the altcoin space, but still pretty strong. I mean, it's an incredible company. Celsius, about 25% APY, and that's just the start. So when you compare that with the interest rates you get in the US, I mean, especially if someone's a little bit older, they don't really understand the blockchain space, they don't understand the technology behind it, they don't really get what Web 3.0 is, it can create for a situation where they're like, I don't even want to mess with that. That's fine. Stick with commodities, stick with stocks, stick with real estate. I'm all good with that. We also talk about all those things in this channel, but we also talk about, you know, alternative investment sectors like you have like whiskey investing, wine investing, watches, cars. You even have things like even like art investing is kind of interesting. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but the wealthiest people in the world typically have a decent percentage, like 5 to 7% in art, in physical art. And this is a very interesting situation. So the main thing here is to understand these interest rates. How in the US, you have very small interest rates at a fractional reserve bank. So like a place where you're opening a free account, typically they only hold like 10% of your deposits on hand or less, and the rest they're lending out, paying you a tiny percent and profiting off the rest of that interest, which is a pretty bad system in my opinion. Then you have the international system where you go to places like Georgia or Mongolia. It's pretty incredible interest rates for Eurodollars. And for really any like banking setup, you have really nice interest rates. And much more ease of banking. I recorded a video on this, like best offshore banks, which again, offshore in my opinion is a bit BS. like that term. We kind of need to change that. I think offshore is the new onshore, because we kind of live in this global financial situation where it's like we're removing the borders. Really, what's important here is to understand I can transmit money across the earth like that, especially with cryptocurrency and blockchain. I mean, I can literally transfer it from my wallet to someone else's wallet in mere seconds. Whereas, if you're trying to do like a wire transfer, it's going to take a little bit. You have SWIFT, the kind of banking messaging system between international banks. We also recorded a video on that with like Chainlink and Ethereum versus SWIFT and like Ripple, all these different things, how they play. SWIFT is like over 50 years old and it's been used for so long. It's kind of a bad system. And then you have the blockchain space, which is truly innovating. It's more decentralized. So the point is, I apologize for this little rant, but I enjoy these topics. So basically you have domestic and international. Again, domestic is FDIC insured, regulated by the Federal Reserve. Then you have international. This is not regulated by the Federal Reserve, and it actually has higher volatility, but much higher interest rates than domestic dollars. And the reason this is so important to analyze is because a lot of people, when they're talking about the US economy, are just focusing on domestic US dollars. And they're not actually zooming out, going, okay, let me take the bird's eye view and have a global perspective on things. This is what we do at this channel. So if you thought this was interesting with the Eurodollar system, definitely like, subscribe, bell button all, like, subscribe, button all. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Leave us a like if you did kind of enjoy my little rant here, and then hit the notification bell and click all, because typically videos are time sensitive. This one, not so much. Some of our more macroeconomic lessons like Keynesian economics, full versus fractional reserve banking like SWIFT. This video, the Eurodollar system and the petrodollar system, will be important, now, it'll be important a year from now, it'll be important 10 years from now. The key thing to remember here is the earlier you learn these things, the better, because the more, knowledge is truly power, and the more you learn, the more you earn. Although they seem like cliches, it's true. I'm telling you from experience and from learning from incredible, wealthy people, it is true. So, thank you very much again. As always, invest global, and until next time.